the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
It's me, Brian, and this is ArchiTech, a conversation with architects and the AV industry, where we talk about best practices, new technology, and trends, along with common hurdles we have to overcome when helping our end users with their projects. Joining me today is Kent Wagster, principal at HDA Architects, focusing on multifamily and senior living. Welcome, Kent.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me here today.
Also joining us is Zac Rinderknecht with Axis Communications. Hello, Zac.
How are you today, Brian?
I'm doing well. So the focus of today's conversation is senior living. These places are growing and popping up everywhere. We tend to blame it on the boomers aging and moving out of their large homes. But I know that in my community specifically, that these are really showing up on every corner, every empty field. They're almost like car washes and Walgreens and CVS's. So with this great expansion of them, and I think they're becoming more pleasant, that stereotypical senior living that we all grew up with, the terrible, 80s and the 90s where you were parking mom or dad or grandma or grandpa. We're trying to make it to where it's more of a livable location. And I know personally, when we moved my father-in-law into one, my wife and I were going around and visiting a lot of them. And there are some of those that are still behind the times, but there are some that, quite honestly, I would move into. You have your own apartments, you have this community space, but specifically, there are some really hidden needs when it comes to the technology of these spaces and their design, because you have people that are still driving and independent living. And then you have people that need more specific care. You have the dementia wings. I'm hoping that's the proper term for that. But you have the memory care part to where you have to be able to ramp up and support those people as they live there. Kent, how is that to work through when you're designing a space and working with the end users and their limitations?
It's just getting a feel for what the client's needs are and really defining, multiple projects is really defining what kind of amenities they want and starting off the projects so we can start programming that way. And then kind of leads into, like you said, we've done facilities. I've worked on facilities. We've done bowling alleys to indoor pools, outdoor pools, bars, always the food is a big issue and very focal point to the residents. And these facilities are growing in size because a lot of the operators want that continuum care from, as you mentioned, Brian, they want the residents to come in at a certain age as independent living. They're free to go, come and stay, but we still want to give them the sense of security, sense of, safety in those facilities as they grow through their population or their aging process from the assisted living to, which is a moderate care of 24 hours where loved ones need, minimum care during the time, if it's medicine, meals, things like that, to the full service care centers, which are 24 continuum care. These facilities do take a lot of operations, employees, and introducing technology into these facilities. It goes down from, like we said earlier about the sense of safety, then we got the sense of controlling, their health, wellness, and things in that nature. And it goes down to the high level of technology the operator is willing to absorb and be able to function through their day-to-day operation. So.
But I think part of that too has to be entertainment for the people that are living there, right? Because it needs to be someplace that someone wants to live or someplace where someone wants to take a family member to live. And they feel comfortable, and not only do the residents feel comfortable, but so do the family members that are still caring for that resident.
Very, very true. The social aspect is a very good point of their day-to-day lifestyle too.
Yeah, I know cards, right? Playing, have room to play euchre or hearts, or I joke with my kids about when they get older living in those facilities, are they going to be playing Pokemon? Because they don't play euchre and hearts anymore, but you'll have these 80-year-old, 90-year-old people playing around with their Pokemon decks.
Yeah, we try to design lounges or spaces where it's not a far walk for the residents to go to, and they kind of meet in their household, and meet their neighbors. And like you said, they play cards, games, dominoes. They even do special events there, birthday parties. So we try to give them the most flexible spaces and the largest amount of spaces that we can to accommodate their needs.
And some of those needs, and I don't want to take us completely down this path, because there's a lot of cool technology that is being used in these types of facilities. But one of them, as we've mentioned a couple of times, is security, and partially because you don't have a lot of staff available now to maybe watch people all the time, 24/7 in person. So you need to have some of that technology to support that. And that's where Zac and companies like his can come in and help take some of that load to or help you stretch your facility, your staff in ways. I know in hospitals the nurses are all wearing their nurse call system so that they can coordinate with each other quickly and in real time while still doing their job. It amazes me how much better that voice command is, where you push the button and you say, call Brian, hide Yurka, and then it immediately calls. But I can't get my car to call my kids because it doesn't recognize their names.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, in the healthcare space, some of those technologies that you're thinking about can really help with the staffing issues that a lot of people are seeing currently. I mean, the addition of cameras to monitor areas that residents might not or should not be at a specific time. We can set cameras up to alert staff that somebody has accessed that area very easily. Beyond just the standard motion detection of a normal camera, we can say that's definitely a person there. We've identified that there is a person there, so we need immediate attention. If there's spaces that are a little more private, we can also do live privacy shields. We can actually pixelate the individual, their full body or just their face, and if that's something that the end user would like to see a little bit more of, and making sure that some of those areas are secure, whether it be badge pass or keypads, whatever it might be. So some of those residents, like you mentioned, Brian, the memory care facilities, if you will, those we can put pads up and scramble the keypad if you want, and make it a little more fun to try to remember your code to punch into get through the door.
I personally have a feeling that would just require like a Post-it note so that I could remember, because I mean, for me personally, with those where the numbers are in a different order every time, I get the concept behind it. But for me, I remember my passcodes by their patterns, whether it's my ATM card or the security code to get into the office, so you moving 1, 5, 7, and 9 to other parts of the screen would cause problems for me. But I could see, you could in theory do 1, 2, 3, 4 because it's in a different order. I don't know. But having experienced that firsthand with my father-in-law, he had dementia, and but he was still, he'd have his moments where he was all there. And there was a couple of times that we would get phone calls from the staff that he was able to remember or see the code someplace, or he would just sit there and he had nothing but time on his hands, and he would go through random numbers, and occasionally he'd get it right. And luckily the staff was there and they were on top of it. But I can see that being a concern for everybody involved. Kent, with these locations having it's really multiple facilities all in the same location, right? You have your, where it's an apartment with minimal needs all the way up to full-time care. So how does the technology change at all in those different locations?
We try to have a sense of, the independent living. They're just wanting that sense of security, sense of safety. As we still kind of look at that, controlling the access as far as the entry doors, things in that nature. As Zach mentioned, cameras, just a sense of security of their residents and their feel for their loved ones. And as you grow into the continuum care, our sense of security aspects and technology will grow. As far as we'll kind of lock down doors, controlled access at the front, containing that for an auto-visual communication to a security point. And then you have all the security aspects of where that goes. And then as you dive into the wings, as far as you mentioned, Brian, about the memory care, dementia, that perspective goes back to the end operator. Some memory care facilities are very, they don't want the full-fledged dementia just from an operation standpoint, or they go to that full-fledged dementia, and that is a full-fledged lockdown wing, which we try to work through with the operations as far as what levels of doors, where at, alarms, things in that nature. And it gets into other technology as far as protecting those residents that do wander. There's wander guard systems, even getting into overall system, controlling that wing, or even getting into an individual, basically wander guard system on that individual, or a wheelchair or something like that, just to be able to track them from a GPS standpoint or things in that nature. So.
I've helped taking care of some elderly family members, and like my father was in the hospital at one point, and he was a wanderer, and I was really shocked being somebody in technology. Right, I'm in a hospital, a good hospital, modern hospital, but yet they had to turn off the bed sensors because he kept getting out of bed, but they were okay with him being in his room. But their monitor for the doorway was really like a magnet, and then something they had picked up at the local hardware store, door alarm. And I was just kind of like sitting there thinking while I was visiting, I'm like, there's got to be a better way to, because it didn't seem like it was foolproof. And there's got to be a better solution to, the tracking, where, if someone's wheelchair bound, you could put a tracker on their wheelchair. I know I have some friends that have early onset dementia, and they're finding things like the Apple tracker, that they just make sure that there's one in her purse or in her hat, because she rarely goes someplace without those two. And she's still there and still able to do things, but sometimes she does get confused, and that kind of helps the family feel a little bit better about knowing where mom's gone, because they can just pull it up and use an air tag. So it's amazing how that technology is helping people maybe stay out of those facilities a little bit longer, but also helping those facilities become more secure and a better experience for not only the residents, but the staff and the family members.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of our facilities we try to design, the kitchens and things like that, the assisted living, and we try to be able to lock things out, give the owner, basically an operator, be able to lock down a stove and just toggle it off, just so if your loved one starting to lose that dementia, where they're not creating a burn aspect, or there's sensors, motion, there's alert devices that we can put on appliances to help to give that sense of resident and the loved one that secure aspect of things. Sorry.
Well, and that I could definitely see a need for that. And again, my experience to where, going over to my father-in-law's house, and the hot water faucet's been running for who knows how long, because he brushed his teeth or whatever and forgot to turn it off. Or the stove was, there's water boiling on the stove. And again, it was like, well, how long has that been boiling? So having that ability to at least notify somebody, or say, hey, if this water's been running at the sink for 10 minutes. Maybe we should shut it off and let somebody know. So what are some of the struggles though, when you guys are designing these spaces, right? I mean, there's all these great features out there where you can monitor stoves, and, I mean, which I didn't even realize were available. So how, what's the struggle, or is there a struggle when you're designing these out, getting them, one, getting the customers that are going to be paying for this, the owners of the properties, to be aware of what's possible, what's not possible, the limitations, so that they're going in, with eyes wide open, but also then getting those put into the plans and installed so that they're operating as they're supposed to.
That's a very good question, Brian. So we try to communicate with them to get a feel for how high of a level they want to operate, and basically start at as basically here's the baseline that we could go from as operation wise up to the higher technology. And as everything, cost drives a lot of these things. So it just kind of comes into establishing and getting that budget. My focus has been, I really like having a GC, general contractor, a part of our development of our process, to be able to help identify the cost, to track down costs, and to help us work back and forth with the owner, so they have a real budget when we go out to the market, or that contractor takes it at basically negotiated price with the end user, and construct these facilities. But it's really comes down to operation wise. It comes down to basically for the end user to understand the safety things and the technology, as well as the cost.
Are you finding that there are GCs that are specializing in this type of build out also, and they come in with that experience, or is it still something that's new, and there's some people do it better than others?
There are GCs in our area that basically have specialized in this and have been constructing these facilities for 10, 15, 20 years. So they understand basically the nuances and the ins and outs of the industry, and also get the whole facilities and the functions as they turn this facility over to the operators, and just really help teach the operators how to function and live within their building, as far as technology and with the newer aspects of code, things that we have to abide by.
And this is like a self-serving question a little bit, but when are you bringing on? You said you like to bring on the GC a little bit earlier. When are you bringing the rest of the mechanical, electrical, technology people? How early are they coming in to the process?
We would like to get them in as soon as possible. It just goes into what the integrated process we would like to go through with the owner, if it's design build, or it's a fully engineered project. If it's fully engineered project, we like to have the engineers with us throughout the whole process and in communication with the owner, so we're all hearing the same thing and being able to get that information documented and correctly integrated into the drawings. Now, as far as the design build integration, we basically would be looking for the contractor to be bringing their subcontractors in, and that we'd basically be bringing them in about 50-60% of the process of our drawings, and start integrating that into our design and working through cost and systems and things of that nature.
For sure. The earlier the better on our side, Brian. I feel that the security side of things, and cameras specifically, are a very last minute thought. Like, oh wait, we need those. What are we going to do? Or we get into a scenario where it's an older aged building and they're trying to retrofit it and put all these extra additional features in. That's something that maybe we could plan a little bit earlier for moving forward, because the Internet of Things is expanding greatly at this time, and everything is either IP based or starting to go wireless. And the wireless technology is great. Is it extremely reliable as a hard connection? So running those hard connections and making sure that those infrastructures are in place early on put pen to paper before we even break ground on something is my philosophy.
As Zach mentioned, having them on early really helps identify the spaces we need that tend to get overlooked, or we start trying to cram things in other rooms that really don't fit in the utility rooms. So having that knowledge up front really helps identify our space a lot more in depth and detail.
Yeah, there's always those struggles, right? Where, getting sensors, pulling wire. It's amazing what some electrical companies can do, how they can get a wire in some of these locations, especially in remodels. But yeah, that coordination is very important to make the whole process go a lot smoother. Well, I really appreciate the conversation today, guys. I think this was enlightening. I know I learned a lot. I don't work a lot in Kent's arena personally in my day-to-day job, but it is something that I've had personal experience with, but also just being somebody that's interested in technology in general. I'm always amazed at seeing those, the sensors on the stove, or the ability to, maybe in one apartment you lock the stove out, without having to go in and physically remove it, because that's kind of a heavy-handed tool for somebody. And sometimes the dementia person someone suffering from that, having the stove still there, even though they can't use it, it's still something that they can fiddle with, or, but doing it in a safe way is a pretty cool idea to me. But I probably shouldn't be designing these places. This has been, again, thanks a lot, Kent. Appreciate your time. If people wanted to reach out to you or HDA, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can reach out to me as Kent Wagster. My number is 314-530-7266, or you can shoot me an email at kwagster@hdai.com. Brian, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure having a discussion with you and Zach here this morning.
Yeah, we're going to have to definitely do this again and get into that multifamily arena, because there's a lot going on there too. Zach, again, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. If people need to get a hold of you or want to reach out, what's the best way?
Yeah, our website is axis.com, so AXIS.com. You can reach me personally at zacr@axis.com, or feel free to call me 319-361-4442.
Awesome. Thank you again both for joining me. And to those of you listening or watching out there, if there's a topic or somebody you'd like us to talk to, throw something in the comments, reach out to me. My email address is brianh, @cti.com. Pretty easy to remember. But yeah, always looking for new show ideas and new guests. So reach out. And again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.